new.
If I talk from here, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming tonight. It's great to see you all. It's just moves me to see so many people come out for the veterans and for guys that are trying to help others heal. And we have a wonderful program tonight. As you all know, I'm sure you read in the invitation that Operation Recovery is a national campaign of the Iraq Veterans Against the War to stop redeployment of wounded and traumatized veterans. And we have here tonight several members from Iraq Veterans Against the War. Our first speaker will be Aaron Hughes, and he's a member of Iraq Veterans Against the War. He's originally from Illinois, all over Illinois. He moved a lot, and then he joined the National Guard right before 9/11. And he wanted to go out and help flood victims and so forth. And then 9/11 happened, and he ended up in Iraq. And he was, after the National Guard, he got out and he went back to school and got a degree in painting from the University of Illinois. And then he did his master's in fine arts at Northwestern outside of Chicago. And he's going to come up and start our program and then introduce the rest of the veterans who are going to speak to you. So, Aaron?
I just want to thank Leslie for doing everything she did to put this together. She goes out of her way every day to make a peace community happen all over Texas and the United States, so appreciate that. I also want to thank the Unitarian Church for hosting us, and all the list of co-sponsors, especially the Dallas Peace and Justice Center. I also want to welcome home all my brothers and sisters that served in arms. So if you're out there and you're a veteran of any war, I just want to welcome you home. What is PTSD?
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
What does that mean?
That means you come back or after you're combat, it kind of makes you scared of stuff.
Okay, anybody else? Any other examples of what post-traumatic stress disorder is? Yes, sir.
What happened to you there stays with you.
Cool. Ma'am?
I would just say that trauma gets stuck in your body and your brain.
Anybody else want to say anything about post-traumatic stress disorder? What it is? In the back?
I think the violence, affects you, and people that I know have constant anxiety attacks, fear, they get overwhelmed by daily life.
It's a powerful definition. What about traumatic brain injury? Has anyone heard of that term? Yes, sir. What does that mean?
For some, it's a penetrating wound, and for others, it's the damage that's done to the brain. It's like cup concussion, or may not show that the brain is actually injured when it's out of the office.
Does anybody else have any other definitions? Does that sound good to everybody? All right. What about military sexual traumas? Anybody heard of that? What is that, ma'am?
Where women in the armed forces are raped.
Anybody else want to say something about that?
Men are also affected in that part.
Anyone else? Currently, a minimum of 20 to 40% of my brothers and sisters that are getting deployed have already been diagnosed by the Department of Defense with these issues. 17% of the service members that are in Iraq and Afghanistan, 17% of the service members in Afghanistan are on psychotropic drugs. Last year,
What was that percentage again?
17% of the service members in Afghanistan are on psychotropic drugs. Yeah, drugs, in other words, like drugs that help you go to sleep, drugs that take away your anxiety, drugs that dope you up so you're not responsive, and they're still during combat missions. Those are of the soldiers that are experiencing combat in Afghanistan, 17% according to a Time article that came out last year.
Are they prescribed?
What's that?
Are they prescribed?
prescribed?
Yeah, they're prescribed by the U.S. military. So that's what we're dealing with. And that's what we're here to talk with you all about. I'm from Iraq Veterans Against the War. My name is Aaron Hughes. I served in the Illinois Army National Guard from 2000 to 2006. I was deployed in Iraq from 2003 to 2004 as a truck driver. After returning from that deployment, it took me 2 years before I realized I was dealing with any issues. 2 years. Currently, most service members, when they get home after one tour, they have 1 year of downtime before they're going back over. Clearly, there's a crisis going on. Last year at Fort Hood, like I was saying, there's 22 suicides. We're here to raise awareness around this crisis. And we're also here to connect the issues between that and ending the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The fact that our military depends on these wounded service members to continue perpetuating these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's up to 20 to 40% of the fighting force that they're dealing with. So I'm going to introduce my brothers and sisters. I'm going to let them tell you about their experiences and why they're a part of Operation Recovery, why they've come to Fort Hood, which is about 3 hours south of here, to organize. Every single day we go on to Fort Hood and we talk to GIs. And we ask them what they're dealing with. We ask them if they've ever heard of post-traumatic stress disorder. We've asked them if they've ever heard of traumatic brain injury. We ask them if they've ever heard of military sexual trauma. We ask them if they're ever getting help or benefits for these issues. Predominantly, they're not. So we're raising awareness and we're collecting testimony. That's what we're doing. We're going to bring that testimony up to Congress as we build a community at Fort Hood that fights for our rights as service members and fights to get all our brothers and sisters home at the same time. So the first person I want to invite up just to introduce herself and explain why she's here is Nikki B. She's going to be playing later tonight. I'll let her tell you why she's a part of Operation Recovery.
My name's Nikki. I'm a medical school student up in Chicago, and I never had much experience with the military or veterans at all in my life until about 2 years ago when I met Aaron at an event that he had organized around Iraq Veterans Against the War in Chicago, and was doing a solidarity tour with labor unions in Iraq. And I became very interested in the whole struggle, but you know, the main thing that sort of ended up drawing me in further was you know, the relationships built and love that grew from that, and realizing that this sort of struggle seeps into every facet of our society, and it doesn't stop with the men and women that come home from Iraq and Afghanistan. It continues into their families, into their communities, and it gets in really deep, and it's part, everywhere you look around, it's there. And even if you don't have a direct affiliation or connection with a veteran or GI, you can see it in our communities around you. And so that sort of brought me in deeper and deeper, and when I came down to Fort Hood just last week to do some guest organizing work, and being on the base and talking to the active duty soldiers has really deepened that that commitment to the work, and that's sort of where I'm coming from. And I will be playing some music that I've written about these issues at the end of the program. So.
Nikki is also a member of an ally organization to Iraq Veterans Against the War called Civilian Soldier Alliance. And I'm going to bring out another member of Civilian Soldier Alliance, Lori, if you'd like to come up and tell a bit about why you're here.
First of all, let me say, well, thank you. Thanks for having us. Second, that I often don't very much like to publicly speak in front of groups. I like to talk to people one-on-one. So if you want to talk to me after, I might have better things to say. Okay, so how did I come into this work? Well, you know, when I came into this work, there wasn't Iraq Veterans Against the War yet. And I was, you know, demonstrating against the invasion and occupation of Iraq. And I was getting tired, you know, it had already been a year, and we were doing actions, and we were, you know, holding signs, and we were marching, and we were trying to demonstrate that this has to end. And I was getting tired, and I wanted to do work that was going to make an impact and be strategic and really end the war. And that's when the first wave of soldiers, service members, started to speak out against the war and to share their experience. And some of them refused to go. And that spoke to me. And that's how I came into this work. I came into this work supporting soldiers who were publicly refusing to fight. And I did that work through another organization called Courage to Resist for many years. I guess I want to share like why, for me, like why this work is important for me. I felt like if I'm opposed to the war and I really want to end it, and first of all, if soldiers refuse to soldier, it's going to end the war. Now, that can look many different ways. Soldiers refusing to soldier, you know, it can be them exercising their rights, speaking about their experience, talking about the experiences they're having in the military right now, right? Like sharing their own stories, that's powerful. So where was I? I felt like if I'm against the war, then it's my responsibility as a civilian to stand behind the soldiers who are speaking out and taking those risks to share what they're experiencing and what's really happening. So that was how I came into this work, and I did that work for many years. And then Iraq Veterans Against the War formed in 2004, and so I found friendships and did activities with them, and you know, through many years. And then this campaign arose. I had taken a break because, you know, it can be tiring to do this work for a long time, so balance is really important. For those of you that are working out there really hard every day, it's important that we have healing in our own lives and that we bring whole, you know, healthy selves to this, because the struggle is going to be long term, and we need to be ready to fight for justice in the long term. But so Operation Recovery was birthed last year, and it drew me out of my break, and I said, this is it. This is a campaign we can win. You know, we can actually win the right to heal. So that's why I'm doing this work. I want to win. I want to make an impact. I want to stop the wars, and I want service members to be treated with dignity and respect, and get the health care that they deserve, that we all deserve, actually. But so I guess that's it. I'm a little nervous, but I'd like to talk to you more one-on-one after. And I think what I want to leave you with is, like, it is our responsibility, you know, as civilians, to stand behind the service members, to speak out, you know, for the rights of service members. But you know, this is like Nikki said, this impacts us, this impacts our communities. Like, we have a stake in this, and it's our responsibility. These soldiers, like, they work for, they're public employees. You know, they're doing this in our name with our brothers and sisters. So I don't know, that's my challenge to you. Like, this issue is about all of us, and it's our responsibility. So thanks for listening.
All right, the last person I'm going to bring up from Civilian Soldier Alliance, talk a little bit about why she's here and part of this project, is LT.
Okay, so I don't speak in front of groups ever, and I've never talked about this really before, but I'm a part of Civilian Soldier Alliance. It was a community that I found because I wanted to know how to help my own family. Some friends of mine that were activists in DC asked me to be involved, and I was looking for a community of support, how to understand. At that time, my brother had returned from Iraq, but how to understand what do we do as a group now? Like, there's been an impact, and we're all seeing it, and you know, how do we move forward together? And I think, you know, just what I've learned so far and had the privilege to be a part of just over the last week. I was also down at Fort Hood, is that it takes a lot of us to do this work, and it takes a community of people. And so that is the intention of Civilian Soldier Alliance, is to provide that support and training so that as allies we are not throwing up our hands, and we're also not asking, you know, the wrong questions, or and you know, we're proceeding with honesty and competency. Did I say that word already? I'm going to say it again. And I think that's all I have for now.